Hello, aspirants. Welcome to PW OnlyIAS. I'm here, Harpreet Singh, with a daily analysis of the Hindu from 27th of November 2024. Now, this is the QR code where you can basically find this particular PDF and along with the other material that is required for your preparation. Let's begin. So, what all topics we have taken for today's analysis? First of all, from the mains perspective, we have taken Supreme Court's view on socialism and secularism. We'll be analyzing them. And then an article on unequals. That is again in the editorial, page 10 and page 8. Next, we see the prelims perspective. An article with respect to Glacial Lake has been there. Then Thumba launching station. An article on Norway and their tribals of the indigenous population and the issues associated with that. And Competition Commission of India mentioned on page number 12. So let's begin with today's analysis. So we have this particular article in the newspaper, Supreme Court's ruling on socialism and secularism. This has been in the news for a very particular reason, that certain PILs have been filed in the Supreme Courts also with respect to why these two words were added in the preamble, and judgment has been given by the Supreme Court, earlier also iterated, again also repeated by the Honorable Chief Justice of India. And along with it, we have it was a Constitution Day on the 26th. So these articles do make sense. We have to analyze these core perspectives or the basic structure of the Constitution. Let's see the dimensions associated with that. When we talk about the concept of socialism and secularism, if you see the original preamble, which this now is an amended one, the preamble of the Constitution basically says the people of India have solemnly resolved to constitute India into sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. These two words were not present, along with the concept of integrity. Also, if you see, we added certain words, unity and integrity of the nation. So, while talking about socialism and secularism in particular, these words were not present in the original Constitution when basically it was promulgated. It was later added. So, let's see this perspective. Amendment to the preamble by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, 1976, during the emergency, when the emergency was at play. The words socialist, secular, and integrity were added to the preamble. Now, original preamble was sovereign democratic republic. That means over here, as we say, sovereign democratic republic. These two words were added later on. Now we see that sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, it also changed the word unity to unity and integrity. So the word integrity, which we see over here, is also mentioned by the amendment. Originally, it was not there. So, but the problem is not with integrity word. The problem is when people talk about these two words. So let us analyze first of all what these words basically mean and what are the dimensions that are associated with that. First, let's take, first thing that we should remember first of all is that people are debating or filing in PIL that the socialism and secularism word should be, let us say, not be added. Why is it added? The Constitution should not have added this, along with the PIL that was filed in the Supreme Court in the view that these two words should be removed, right? So Supreme Court said no, it cannot be because it is basic structure. We'll see that dimension, but let us see the concept. When I talk about secularism, please understand, core meaning of secularism in simple words is no state religion. A state does not have a state religion. Example, Pakistan. Now, Pakistan is an Islamic republic. So, because of this, it is not secular. On the other hand, if you take the example of India, USA, France, these do not have a state religion. So what does it happen? These are by nature secular. So please understand, first concept, basic concept is, forget everything right now, whether giving equal status to all religion, equal in the eye of the state, all those things come later on. Those depend upon the relationship between the state and the what we say as a religion. But over here, the major meaning is if the state does not have a state religion, then only we call it as a secular state. If it has a state religion, then it is not considered as a secular nation or a state. The problem that arises is, please understand, when we talk about secularism, the discussion is with respect to state. State is please remember, a political term. Nation is a cultural term, right? State and religion. How there is interaction between them, this will judge the nature of the secular tendencies. When we talk about secularism, please remember, why do people say that the word secularism should not be added in the constitution, should not have been added, this should be removed? These debates do come. The reason behind it is the secularism that is used in the Western countries or where it originated is very different from what secularism we practice. That is why the concept of Indian secularism versus Western secularism comes. When people oppose that the word secularism should be removed or why it is a part, over there they are trying to say the word secularism of a Western connotation is not relevant in India. India's secularism is its own, so which is not represented from the word of secularism. We'll understand that. See, when I talk about state and religion, Indian's form of secularism, please remember, Western form of secularism you will basically see in countries like France. Now you will see, is it present in US, UK? Yes, it was to a certain extent now also, but because of the large scale migration of the people from the other parts of the countries, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh have taken place. So their idea of secularism, Western secularism, has been diluted because of the large diversity which has now come, which was earlier not present. Because earlier what used to be there used to be major Christian population in the Western countries, and their relationship was basically the Christianity and the church, what the role has to be. Now when the large number of people from other religion have come, so particularly in United States and UK, so the concept of Western secularism has diluted. But even today in France, we see that it is still prevalent. So that is why we are taking example of France in the form of Western secularism. Over here, Indian secularism is there. Now, if I want to differentiate, please understand, over here, there is no strict separation between the state and religion. Over here, there is strict separation. That means you will be seeing that strict separation is not there because India has a large diverse country, large number of religions are here. We see that religion has already been a part of the political system since ages. We used to have the concept of dharma. Dharma used to mean righteousness, where even the king who was to rule used to have priest in the court so that who could guide them whether he is following the marg of dharma or not. So that is why you cannot separate completely the concept of religion right now, because religion's role is to show you the right path. Today's concept of dharma has changed and people perceive it as religion, but what it used to be is dharma or righteousness. So that is why if you take it from that connotation also, the different religions present also show the different path how to lead a proper life. So in India, where the concept of religion or dharma has been very important from the perception of their day-to-day life, you cannot simply separate it. That is why the strict separation does not exist. In case of the Western societies, we realize that there is strict separation between the religion and the state. That means the religion is not interfering here, the state is not interfering there. You have to keep their own gametes on their own. Now, please understand, we will not go into the political section study, just briefly we are studying over here. So what over here we mean? Please understand, because of this, what happens that because of this particular concept, we realize that a lot of facilitation is there. See, let us give an example. If a person wants to wear, I'm wearing a turban, another person might be wearing his own religious dress. If you're moving on the road, you will not be told why are you wearing your religious clothes, because we see over there that you have right to express, profess, practice your religion. In case of France, you will be seeing Western representation of Western secularism over here, where the strict separation is there. People might oppose that why are you wearing a turban, why are you wearing a hijab, why are you wearing this particular thing? Because there is strict separation. So what happens because of this strict separation, India's secularism is facilitating this. That means it is not going to unnecessarily intervene on things, because it is, in a way, you will be realizing that the strict separation of religion and state is not existing. So what, because of the lack of such problems, we say it is a positive form of secularism that is there. Over here, we realize that you would be seeing that hijab ban, burqa ban, burkini ban, turban ban, very common in France, which we saw. Why? Because they said that you are publicly displaying your religion, which is not expected in our society. You keep your religion as a private affair, not a public affair. That is why you see this is also known as a negative form of secularism. Because we cannot separate completely the aspect of religion from the state. Next is, by default, you will be realizing that if religion has a important part to play in a society over here, you'll see pressure groups based on religion also present here or playing an important role. Here, lesser or no, less or none. Because over here, separation of the religion and state is there. So similarly, like these, please, you would be realizing that we over here have a right to profess, practice a religion in public. Over here, it is not. You can write that statement also. Freely practice, profess your religion, but over here, not. But we know that freely practice, profess does not mean religious conversion is allowed in India. That is again going against the constitutional principles of the fundamental rights. Now see, when the people talk that secularism is not an Indian word, it should be removed, they are basically talking about the Western secularism that is not Indian. Our form of secularism is very different. People are not questioning this, because this concept is something that is of Indian aspect. That is why when people question secularism, they're talking or questioning the Western secularism, not the Indian form of secularism. That is our own or indigenous. That is which we denote from the word of dharma or dharma marg that we talk about, right? Now, before the word of secularism was added in the constitution through the preamble, can we say, was India not secular in nature? Yes, it was. Let's see that. Do you see there are a large number of articles which give equal rights to people of different religion? Let us see Article 14, grants equality before law and protection of law to all irrespective of religion. Article 15 enlarges the concept of secularism to the widest possible extent, prohibiting discrimination on the ground of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, again irrespective of religion. Article 16 one guarantees equality of opportunity to all citizens, excuse me, in matters of public employment, retirement, irrespective of your religion. Article 25 provides freedom of conscience, that is, all people are equally entitled freedom of conscience, a right to freely profess, practice, and propagate their religion. Article 26, every religious groups or individuals have the right to establish and maintain the institutions of their choice and administer their choice according to them. Again, we have Article 27, the state shall not compel any citizen to pay taxes for the promotion or maintenance of any particular religion or religious institution. Article 28 allows education institutions maintaining different religious groups to impart religious instructions. Article 29 and 30 provides cultural and educational rights to the minorities. That includes, obviously, the religious minorities, the linguistic minorities also. Article 51A, fundamental duties, obliges all citizens to promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood. That means irrespective of your religion and caste. So do you realize all these statements, they show the secular tendencies of India. Now, these articles were present even before the 42nd Amendment. That is why, please remember, the Honorable Supreme Court very categorically said that, firstly, secularism is a basic structure of the Constitution. Now, the basic structure, from where has this word come? In the particular case of Keshav Nanda Bharti case versus the state of Kerala, Keshav Nanda Bharti case, or Keshav Nanda Bharti versus state of Kerala, 1973, a landmark judgment was given where the Honorable Supreme Court held there are certain things which are core and integral to the spirit of the Constitution of India, which cannot be amended by the Parliament. And that means even if they are amended, Supreme Court can, under Article 13, declare that particular law as ultra vires. That means violation of the Constitution, and declare it null and void. Because of this, now anything that is added under the category of basic structure according to the Supreme Court, this is not basic structure, but is not mentioned in the Constitution. It is a creation of the Supreme Court only. So all those things which are mentioned in the basic structure cannot be amended or changed by the Parliament. Supreme Court has mentioned that secularism is also a basic structure of the Constitution. So right now, all those debates of secularism word being deleted cannot be possible at all. The reason behind it is that it is a basic structure. First. Second, even if the word, let us assume people, if it is deleted also, we know that it is by nature secular in nature. Third, we are not talking about Western secularism, we are talking about Indian secularism. Now when we see Indian secularism, please remember, when I am talking about this form, there is no strict separation. Because of that, what happens? We maintain a principal distance from all religion. What does it mean? Principal distance mean this is a state, and these are all different religions. So it is maintaining an equal distance from all of them. That means after having understood this, we know because of these aspects, we maintain an equal distance where all religions are equal in the eye of the state. And if certain preferential treatment is given to one religion, you will have to give to other religions also. That is Indian secularism, which is very different from the strict separation between the state and religion in the Western secularism, which is not possible in India. That is why we say it is the Indian secularism which is unique, has its own origin, outcome of the cultural history of India. Right? Now, next thing that comes is socialism. When I talk about socialism, please understand. We need to understand from the perspective from where these words basically have come. See, when we talk about societies from the perspective of economy, we generally broadly classify them under certain societies are capitalistic and certain are socialistic. Right? Like, let us go to 1920s for the timing, right? 1920s, take the example of United States of America. Now take the example of USSR, Soviet Republic, right? Capitalist means that what is going to be produced, at what quantity it is going to be produced, at what rate it is to be sold and distributed would be decided by the private companies. That means capitalist or capitalism basically promotes the aspect of privatization and private entities playing the major role with respect to the economy, right? In case of socialism, we realize that it is the government which is playing the major role, where what has to be produced at what price and what is to be sold and distributed is decided by the government. Both have their own pros, both have their own cons. So what happens is that India, when we talk about India, from this word, India is neither, when we started with the constitution, though the word socialism is used, we do not use it from the perspective that we are following the Russian socialism blankly. Prime Minister Nehru, even during that time, said, yes, we are inspired from the Soviet Republic socialism, because India at that time has been a very poor country when it got independence. We could not afford to have a capitalistic society purely, because in that case, a very huge differences between the rich and poor will come. What they needed was a welfare state where the state can play an important role. So that is why what happened, we did adopt elements of socialism, but we did not adopt the Soviet Republic socialism, where state will play a role everything. There have certain private entities, but with time that dilution took place. So what we see is, later on we realized to quote it well, we call it the concept of democratic socialism. Democratic socialism, just write it down. When I talk about democratic socialism, we are talking about the aspect that here the state will play an important role in the economy, because there are a large number of people who need the government to play an important role. In a way, we are trying to create a welfare state. Welfare state, because over here the government will play a very important role for what? To help the needy. Help the needy, the poor, the vulnerable. And because of that, we have so many social sector scheme. Don't we have, like for example, if you see here, National Food Security Act, 80 crore people are basically getting ration. Yes or no? We have Poshan Abhiyan. Yes or no? We have midday meal scheme. What are these? What are these? These are social sector schemes because India is aiming at a welfare state where the needy have to be given an extra effort. That is why when we talk about socialism over here, we are not talking about the West USSR socialism where everything is done by the government. Initially, a few years it was required, but later on things did change. Now, please understand, we at present time also where our markets are opening, where we can say that FDI is allowed to 100% in various sectors, even in the defense now also now. To certain percentage, we can the private sectors can play an important role. Even in railways, also certain sectors, the private sector are playing an important role. Still, those schemes do not get eliminated. That is why we say socialism is a phenomena over here where the state is playing a role towards ending the discrimination from social, economic, and political perspectives, or the exploitation of the people, or the discrimination that is facing. So that is an important perspective. That is why we say over here also, please understand, the Supreme Court had very categorically said that socialism and secularism are core principles, a core to the Indian constitution. And because they are a core, so what is it? It is a basic structure. From where did we get the basic structure? You realize that Keshav Nanda Bharti case 1973. Now these things cannot be amended or changed because see, whether you have so many welfare schemes and all, the government is playing an important role. So on one hand, it is facilitating the uh, investments also, and on the other hand, the needy people are getting the schemes also. So we cannot remove the word socialism from the core idea itself. Don't you realize that when we talk about Article 15, Article 16, special provisions need to be made for children and women. We talk about reservations, we talk about National Commission for Scheduled Caste, we talk about National Commission for Scheduled Tribe, we talk about National Commission for the Backward Classes, National Commission of Minorities, National Commission for the Disabled People. We have policies on transgenders. We have so many policies. Aren't they for the vulnerable sections? They are. So we, by instinct, cannot change the nature, even if the word is, in a way, if it is erased also. But it cannot be erased now because it is a basic structure. This is what is the dimension. Now coming to the Supreme Court's direct statement. Supreme Court bench led by Chief Justice Sanjeev Khanna and Justice Sanjay Kumar defines secular as a republic that upholds equal respect for all religions. One thing which I had sent principal distance. Socialistic is interpreted as a republic committed to eliminating all forms of exploitation, social, political, and economic. The court dismissed the petition, determining the arguments flawed and unworthy of detailed education. The timing of the petition filed 44 years after the amendment raised the question about the motive behind them. So realize that Supreme Court said the person who has filed the petition is just waste of time and dismissed it. Because aren't these two things integral to the part? The Indian secularism, please remember, is giving equal respect to all. This is what the concept of Indian secularism is, which is based on the concept of dharma. It is different from Western secularism. It is different from Western secularism. We know that very well. So then the debate should end over there only, right? So this is the thing. Let's move ahead. Another thing that comes here is, one more thing, amendability of the preamble. Because it is added in the word has been added to the constitution through by the preamble. So the debate comes that whether the preamble can be amended or not. So various interpretations have been there because Supreme Court earlier said that whether preamble is even the part of the constitution. So please understand that in Berubari Union case 1960, preamble is not a part of the constitution, was declared by the Honorable Supreme Court. Keshav Nanda Bharti case said that it is a part of the constitution and preamble has a significant role in the interpretation of the provisions. LIC of India 1995 said Supreme Court that preamble is an integral part of the constitution. Now, understand. Once it is said that preamble is a part of the Indian constitution, that means its amendability or change will come under the purview of the concept of basic structure. Concept of basic structure. Now, if it comes under the purview of the basic structure, you cannot change those words because socialism and secularism are the basic structures. That is the thing. You can amend other parts, add certain things, provided it does not violate the basic structure. Again, repeating, basic structure is not something present in the constitution. It is something that the Supreme Court evolved as a concept because various amendments are being carried out or to the constitution by the government. So Supreme Court came up to the view that there are certain things which should not be amended, otherwise the power shift towards the parliament will take place to a great extent. The balance of power and checks and balances is what is the core idea of the Indian government system or governance. That is why the concept of basic structure was originated, or the Supreme Court basically came up with that. Now, which cannot be changed or amended by the parliament. Let's move ahead. Now comes the concept from republic to republic of unequals. This is again, please remember, topic to GS2 important, very important concept, because these are concepts which are related to the core idea of the constitution. Please write this topic. What does this mean? Firstly, before we go ahead, let us understand what do you mean by republic. When I talk about republic, please see the republic in the Indian constitution is basically, or even present in the preamble, embodies the essence of the India's democratic ethos and government structure. And what does it say? It says that there is absence of monarchy and represents a system where highest authority, the president, is elected and the supreme power resides with the people. See, when you talk about republican system, the other contradictory system is monarchy. Republican means that the head of the state is elected. Now the question will come, sir, head of the state is elected, like the president in our country is elected. Now you'll say, but sir, he is not directly elected. The reason behind it is that the real power resides with the government. So in spite of that, we have at least an elected, because the elected representatives are electing the president. And another thing is that according to the interpretation given by the Supreme Court, and even the constitution embodies it, that the president is bound by the decision that is taken by the prime minister headed by the council of ministers. So in a way, any action done by the president is basically the work or action by the government. So in this case, we can very well understand that here, who the government is, the people who have voted, we have voted us as in power, who are representing us. That is why we realize that this republican system basically shows the democratic structure where it is a rule of the people. Over here, indirectly, obviously, we are electing people. So at least we have a choice. We can change the government if it doesn't work properly. So this is representing the democratic ethos where we do not have a monarchical structure like we have in what? In United Kingdom. Even we have in Norway, Sweden. So there are kings who are ruling. If you go to North Korea, those are dictators, king-like structures who are ruling. But over here, we have a proper systematic way through which elections take place and then parties come to power and they basically administer. So republican system basically is the ethos of the democratic structure of India. Now the thing that comes over here is, please see, this particular article, when we see republic to republic of unequals, is basically pointing out that large scale inequality has come up. If you see, when we talk about socialism in the previous article, we said that socialistic principles were there so that the needy, we can help the needy, the governments can help the needy. But today's time, we realize that the gap between the rich and poor has become so much that a lot of problems are there. There are certain extracts from this particular paper that I've taken out and reading it. See this, then we'll go to the interpretation. This is an extract from the newspaper itself, which we have posted it. See, the fundamental rights in part 3 and the directive principles in part 4 of the constitution reflects the 3 principles of egalitarian liberal. Egalitarian, that means everybody is basically at an equal pedestal. Egalitarian liberalism aims to reduce inequality and create absolute equal society. So this is what was the aim of the directive principles as well as the fundamental rights that we have in the constitution. Article 38(2) of the constitution of the DPSP, Directive Principle of the State Policy, insists that state shall strive to minimize inequalities of income and eliminate inequalities in status, facilities and opportunities. Now, do you realize that state should do such things that where inequalities are removed and there is egalitarian society established? This is what the original aim was, because we were inspired from the socialistic ideals. If we move ahead, we'll be realizing that this basically aims at reducing inequalities and creating an egalitarian society based on equal opportunities and facilities. Article 39C emphasizes that economic systems ought not to result in concentration of wealth and means of production in the common, which is detrimental to the common. Do you realize this? Article 38.2 and Article 39C. See over here. This is mentioned in the article 38.2 and over here Article 39C. Both of them are talking about the aspect that we should create an egalitarian society where everybody has, let us say, equal status. Along with it, there is no concentration of wealth in the hands of you. This is what the constitutional principle is saying, right? If we go ahead again, you will be seeing that the court also has a similar opinion in the previous cases. Now we realize that few days back, the private property judgment has come up. So that has changed certain things, but let us see the judgments. In the DS Nankara and others versus Union of India in 1982, the court said that the basic framework of socialism in the constitution is to provide a decent standard of life to the working people and social security from cradle to grave. That means the role of a welfare state. That means socialistic principle, which is being inspired through this Article 38 and 39, we see that they are creating a welfare state where you provide equal opportunities, facilities to even the people who need them. Along with it, in the Air India Statutory Corporation versus Union Labour, others, 1996, the court held that ideological aspects of the Indian Constitution in the preamble, fundamental rights, and DPSP aim to establish an egalitarian social order, protecting the social and economic justice and dignity of an individual. Clear? Similarly, there is one more judgment, Samantha versus State of Andhra Pradesh, where the court interpreted the meaning of word socialism is a way to reduce inequalities in income, provide equal opportunities and facilities to create an egalitarian society. Again, Justice V. Iyer in Article 39B basically stated that the ambit of the community resources was in line with the constitutional ideology. So what do you see? We see Article 38, we see Article 39B, we see Article 39C. All these things are pointing towards a society which is egalitarian. What do you mean by egalitarian? Where everybody has an equal status. Right? Right or wrong? Equal status. But today's time, do you realize recently, now just a minute, let us see here. Last week, the Honorable Supreme Court passed a judgment with respect to Article 39B, where a word community let us say there are certain interpretations, common, community, common good, and community welfare. With respect to Article 39B, you will be seeing certain things that which we talk about community resources. So please understand, when we talk about community resources, it is interpreted from these three principles. See, community resources is interpreted from the aspect it is for common good, it is for the welfare of the community, for a common good again. So what we see over here is that it said that earlier government could acquire any property it wants for what? For the good of the people. Now the Supreme Court said no, it cannot acquire property just for the community welfare because private property has been emphasized over here, the rights to private property. Now do you realize that today's the Supreme Court judgment has also transformed from the previous judgments where extra emphasis was given on the socialistic principle, but today the economy has changed. The emphasis on private property is also there. People are earning, they're becoming rich also. You cannot stop them from becoming. That is why you realize what has happened is over the time where the economy has liberalized, economy has changed, that certain people have gained or gathered a lot of money. They have a lot of property. You cannot stop them also. Like for example, we had the Sealing Acts which restricted the amount of land that you can own. Today, the relevance is almost to nil. So we realized that with time, as the society went ahead, there were a lot of changes with respect to the economic structure. and the liberalization of the economy, which resulted in creation of the rich and the poor classes, which have aggravated to an even greater extent. So see here what has happened. The recent report was income inequality is 100-year high, worse than that of the colonial era. Now, if you see the share of wealth held by the top 10%, you will be see it as maximum in India. One of the maximum, if you see. Why the reason behind it is because income inequality is rising in India at a very, very rapid rate. At a very rapid rate. Now, let us see certain reports and aspect. If you see, according to the recent report, we realize that top 1% in India basically have 42% wealth. 42% wealth. Secondly, if you go to the previous reports, so please remember, when we talk about the poor, or the below poverty line, you realize that according to the Tendulkar Committee report, there were 21% people who are basically below poverty line. What do you take from the Rangarajan? You will be seeing 29%. Now, please remember, whenever we talk about, let us say, with time when we are going, the percentage is decreasing, please remember, a percentage decrease does not show the quantum number increase or decrease, because the population is also rising. But if you see from the aspect of poverty, we realize that today the poverty is actually rising. The percentage, this point, as a percentage of population might be less, but in the numerical aspect, we realize that the incomes over here, first one hand is top percent are gathering the income and their wealth is increasing. For the poor, the income is decreasing. On the other hand, the number of poor overall are increasing, not decreasing. Next thing, if you want to see the real poor strata, according to the Ministry of Agriculture, it will be very shocking that a agri household has an income of rupees close to, please, about close to rupees 10,275 rupees per month. Can you imagine? The irony is that one MRI is 15,000 rupees. This is the case. Please remember that this value has increased because the higher income in the Punjab, Haryana and Western UP region has increased this average. Otherwise, it would have gone even lower. If you see the society with respect to scheduled caste, you can see that these people, only 5% are earning greater than rupees 10,000 per month. And out of the scheduled caste population, about 75% of them are in the rural region. So this is again, they're facing exploitation, untouchability issues, exclusion also, and along with it, monetary aspect also. So with time, what is going on is that the poorer are becoming poor, further poor, and the richer are becoming richer. The problem in a way is that, see, we cannot stop the rich from becoming rich. That is a simple thing. You cannot just take their money and distribute it. Or neither can you impose extra taxes that will lead to the investment going outside. You have to facilitate the investment and the money creation. That is important because that money creation will later on benefit. What is important is that on one hand, yes, we have to balance it from the form that these people who are suffering, they need to be basically come and again treated from the aspect of the welfare state, where schemes which are targeted at them should be better benefiting them. Let us say, if we talk about the aspect of, let us say, Manrega. Now let us see, please understand, a case study is there. In case of Manrega, you will be seeing that now the thumb impressions are basically used for the payments, for the work that you do. In case of Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand, where a study by the Down to Earth magazine reported that because of the labor activities, the thumb impressions are basically not there and they could not get the payment for few months because the families over there were so poor because of the lack of the payments and the lack of ration also. Few members in the families died. So what we here understand is that We as a country have grown. We are again growing. We are aiming to be a developed country by 2047. But if we do not have these people along with us, we will face issues. You can see from the perspective, if you see women for that matter, see, women are close to 50% of the population. They contribute merely 18% to the GDP. See for yourself. That automatically shows the inequality of the contribution towards economy also. This is a problem. So the fact is that targeted programs, better implementation, 360-degree appraisal as stated by the Administrative Reform Commission, these are the things that should be done. And use of technology should be balanced in a way that does not result in someone being deprived of it. That is very important, right? So let's move ahead. Prelims topics. NGT issues notice to Central on the expansion of the glacial lakes. Please let us say what are glacial lakes. Glacial lakes are the water bodies formed due to melting of glaciers. We realize that the temperature is rising. So what happens is in those mountainous regions, there are certain depressions that are created on the mountain structures. So because the glaciers are melting, those depressions are basically filled by the melting of the glacier, and that creates a lake over there. That is why lakes of the water bodies formed of melting glaciers. Distribution, these glacial lakes are commonly situated close proximity to the edges of the glaciers. So there are various kinds which you do not have to go into detail, but various kinds of glaciers that are present based on their shapes and size. Ice contact lakes. Initially, these lakes are connected to the ice, known as ice contact lakes. Ice distinct lakes, glaciers move and retreat, and what their ice is basically remaining there over there, they melt in the depressions and creates the form of lake. So what you basically need to remember is these glaciers present with time increase in temperatures leading to their retreat from the regions where they were earlier. And their retreat, that means moving back in a colder region. So what happens, the regions where the depressions are there, the ice initially over there melts and that creates a lake. So that is basically created by, that is known as glacial lake. Now those lakes which are created are bound by, let us say, certain sediments which might not be very strong in nature, because those sediments are basically the remains of the erosion activity that took place through the glacier. Now what happens is, when we talk about the regions, let us say Kedarnath and all, because we see the glaciers moving back or retreating, large number of such lakes are being created. Now what happens, because they are not very solid structures and those are formed because of certain sediments that are basically binding them so that the water doesn't come out. The moment the water further increases, the moment the barricades of that particular lake might, let us say, break, because they're just made of sediments, and large number of quantities of water flows to the regions, and that basically also known as glacial, that is basically known in simple words is glacial lake outburst floods. Now please see over here. Coming back to this again, lakes, we have various types of lakes. Glacial lakes, types of sediments which are present are glacial, muds, silty clays and sands. Factors that affecting the distribution, it depends upon the chemical makeup and the drainage system. Now please understand what a glacial lake outburst floods. I have already told you that supposingly this is a mountain peak, mountain range, let us say. There are certain depressions over here that are created by, let us say, the erosive activities. Now the glacier earlier was here, right? Whole this region was there and erosive activity was taking place. Now because the temperature or global temperature was not high, so in most of the time this was covered by the lake, this covered by the glacier. Now what happens as the temperature is rising, the new position of the glaciers would be like this. Let us say in these regions only. Now these regions where, let us say, some erosive activities have been there, the ice, this ice would be there. After some time, what will happen? It will melt and it will create a lake. Now what happens is it is bound by certain sediments over here. Now these sediments are not very permanent in nature, but we realize this water that is gathered is in huge quantities. Now supposingly over here you have regions here, plain regions are here. Let us say Kedarnath region is here, right? Kedarnath temple is here. When these barricades break, because it is of temporary nature, large water flows down and it harms the people there, let us say the villages or whatever place their people reside. That is why glacial lake outburst flood. So it creates a flood-like situation which happened in Kedarnath in 2013. So glacial lake outburst flood are sudden release of water sediments from the lakes blocked by natural barriers like moraines or glacier. Moraines are basically sediment which are brought or created because of the erosive activity by the glaciers on those rocky structures of the mountain peaks or the ranges. So this is a glacier scenario. Now please see formation. Just a minute. Causes of the glacial lake: dam-like formation that is created because of the sediments which bind them around them. Triggering events, let us say some earthquake happens, so that sediment which was binding the lake or the boundary of the lake breaks, and then the large quantities of flood comes. Global temperature, great increase in temperature is taking place. We realize that we are aiming at not increasing it to more than 1.5 degrees Celsius, but we realize that it is going to rise further with respect to the UNFCCC framework. So what is going on right now over here is that with the increasing temperature, more water is being basically glacial water, the glaciers are melting and more of such lakes are being created. So that automatically is an outcome of the temperature rise. So now what is going on is this, when comes down at such a fast pace, destroys lot of cities, cities in a way, villages, harms a lot of community living and life, and tourism is again impacted very badly. Next topic to GS3, 6 decades of Thumba launch. Now Thumba is a place again in Kerala, please understand. Location Thumba in Thiruvananthapuram in Kerala. Full name is TERLS. It was established in 1963. The Thumba Equatorial Rocket Launch Station, the full form, established on 1963, the southern tip close to the Earth's magnetic equator. The launch of the first sounding rockets from Thumba in 1963 marked the beginning of India's space program with a bedrock for the all vehicles to be built in the future. So again, we should know where it is basically and the importance of it, because it is close to the magnetic equator also, and equatorial currents are also over there. So it is basically easier to launch from that particular part, and basically a very important site with respect to ISRO's launch. Next is topic 3 GS3, Norway's apology to Sami and minority groups. Please understand something very important. Norway, please understand, just 2 minutes over here is important. Norway, see, was a colony where you would say the colonial powers were Denmark had a rule over it, right? The Denmark basically ruled Norway. Now, when it got independent, we see certain changes taking place, but we need to understand there's a common thing that happens across the world. See, the Britishers did not rule Norway. The reason behind it is they went to various regions in Asia, Africa to rule. They did not get into much conflict in the European region. So that is why over here, these territories were basically under the rule of the Denmark. Right? Now, during this particular time, we realized that a lot of indigenous communities were there in Norway. The names of those communities are like the Samis, the Kevins, the forest Finns. Now, what happened was, during the time of it becoming a colony and even after getting independence, we realized that there was a repeated process through which we call as Norwegization of the tribals. What does it mean? That means you want to bring the indigenous people into mainstream. What do you mean by mainstream? That means, for example, they have their own set of marriages, own set types of families, own type of fooding system. You're trying to unnecessarily impose what the culture of the other people are on these tribals, because tribals were considered as very backward. Now, this was a repeated effort from the government of Norway and even during the colonial time also, so reduce the culture of the indigenous people and impose the mainstream culture on the tribals. This is known as, in Norway, known as Norwegization. That means, like we have in India, indigenization, where tribals are basically influenced by the mainstream culture and then they tend to forget their own culture. This was basically being done over here. And today we see that the tribal people are demanding their rights. Like we saw the Maori tribe in New Zealand. We saw Indian tribes in India and various tribes like Nagas, Khasis, they're demanding their rights. Over here we have these people also demanding their rights now that the countries during the colonial time, during the independence, after post-independence, they were basically suffered because their culture got lost or negatively impacted because of the rule. So what happened is, The recent activity that took place is in a good way is the country or even the king apologized publicly that the policies that were adopted by Norway during after independence and pre-independence time. That is something worth appreciation, that now recognition of their rights, their language, their culture is under the process so that they live as the equal stakeholders in the country. Now that's something that you should be knowing. Flipkart, Alphabet gets a nod to acquire stake. That means in order to acquire stakes in certain Indian companies, you need the permission from the Competition Commission of India. Now, Competition Commission of India, please remember, is enacted by, came into power by the Competition Act 2002. Now, see, idea was following the 1991 economic liberalization. The government wanted to promote the competition among the private companies. It did not want to have a monopoly. That means one company acquiring everything and having the power to decide power and everything. That will create issues. So they wanted to have a proper competition among the companies also. For that, Competition Commission basically came into force. Structure appointment, the chairperson and the members are appointed by the central government. Composition, it has basically consists of a chairperson and not less than 2 and not more than 6 other members. Qualifications, member must have the ability of integrity, standing and qualified judge of a high court, or a special knowledge, professional experience not less than 15 years of international trade economics, and along with it we can have other people who have the specialization in various fields can be a member of the Competition Commission. Function, investigate any negative impact of a competition or some monopoly is being created. Regulate the mergers, as we say over here, certain stake is being acquired, then even complete acquiring of taking place or merger of two companies taking place. Then also the permission of Competition Commission is required, because that tends to influence the market situation or the competition in the market. Eliminate any anti-competitive practices, awareness generation and opinion on the competition can be taken over here. Significance, and handles antitrust cases, handles mergers and acquisitions like we have seen in the case of Alphabet. Promote small businesses, prevent market distortion and peaceful coexistence of the market. Challenges, again there are cartelization. We realize that though few companies are there, they can still create cartels and influence the policies as well as the prices. So there are still challenges in this. Digital business, again very difficult to regulate that. We have a lot of problems. It is very dynamic in nature. There's still a challenge. Low manpower with CCI, and evolving businesses are something that they have to keep pace with, which Competition Commission is not able to do right now. So these are again the challenges. MCQs. Question 1 with optics explanation. Question 2. Question 2, options, answer. Question 3, options, answer. Question 4, options, answer. Question 5, options, answers. So this was the analysis of the Hindu from my side. Hope you liked it, enjoyed it. We'll be continuing with this, with a comprehensive analysis of these newspapers on a daily basis. Take care and Jai Hind.